Societal control is not static, it transforms, it finds new expressions. Yesterday's chains are not today's. Power refines its methods constantly. We move from one paradigm to another. This essay explores this profound shift, from external discipline, clearly visible, to internalized pressure, often unseen. A new cage has been constructed. Its bars are made of ambition, control once manifested through overt force. Society operated on prohibition and duty. The no was a central disciplinary tool. This was the age of negativity. It defined clear boundaries for action. Individuals were subjects of a sovereign power, or cogs in a disciplinary machine. Their paths were largely prescribed. Freedom was a limited concept then. Obedience was the primary virtue. Today, a different logic prevails. The nature of coercion has changed. It is no longer primarily about saying no. Instead, society whispers, yes, you can. This positive injunction appears liberating. It suggests boundless opportunity for all, but this can carry its own weight. It is a subtle, more insidious form of control. This is the core of our present dilemma. Understanding this is crucial. This transition is not merely academic. It profoundly affects our lives. It shapes our mental well-being. It redefines our sense of freedom. It alters our understanding of responsibility. We must examine these subtle mechanisms. We must see the outlines of this new cage. Only then can we begin to think about what true autonomy might mean in this new demanding landscape. Michel Foucault described disciplinary societies. These societies emerged in the 18th and 19th centuries. They organized individuals within closed environments, prisons, schools, factories, barracks, hospitals. Each institution had its specific function. Each aimed to mold the individual, to make them docile and useful. Control was visible, structural, and continuous. It was a society of clear rules and clear consequences for breaking them. The primary modality was discipline. This involved surveillance and normalization. Individuals were constantly observed, assessed. Their behavior was compared to a norm. Deviations were corrected through punishment or through processes of training. The body was a key site of power. Power aimed to produce obedient bodies, bodies that performed tasks efficiently. This was the essence of disciplinary technology. The imperative was, you should. This command came from an external authority, the teacher, the foreman, the doctor, the guard. It dictated what one ought to do. It prescribed behavior and thought. Failure to comply led to sanction. This created subjects of obedience. Individuals internalized these external rules, but the source of control remained outside. It was locatable, identifiable. These institutions created a certain order, a society segmented into functional spaces. Each space had its own logic of control. Life was a passage from one enclosure to another, from the family to the school, from the school to the barracks or factory, and perhaps eventually to the hospital or prison. This was a society of confinement. Freedom was what existed outside these walls or in the interstices of the system. Gilles Deleuze built upon Foucault's ideas. He observed a shift in societal control. Disciplinary societies were giving way. They were being replaced by societies of control. This transition was not abrupt. It was a gradual, ongoing process. The old institutions did not simply vanish, but their logic began to change. The walls became more permeable. Control became more diffuse. In societies of control, confinement is less central. Control operates in open settings. It is continuous and without clear limits. Deleuze used the metaphor of the modulate, like a self-deforming cast. It changes from one moment to the next. Individuals are no longer molded once. They are perpetually modulated, accessed. Think of the highway, not the factory. Access is granted or denied. The key word is no longer discipline. It is now control or modulation. The factory is replaced by the corporation, the school by lifelong learning, the examination by continuous assessment. Punishment transforms into therapy or management. Individuals are seen as individuals, data points in a larger system. Masses become samples, data, markets. Control is exercised through information. This form of power is more subtle. It is less about direct confrontation. It is more about managing flows, controlling access, coding information. The individual is always indebted, always in a state of becoming, never quite finished, never quite free. The snake is Deleuze's animal for this society. Its coils are more complex than the mole's tunnels, representing the disciplinary society's enclosures. Building on these ideas, we see a further shift. We now inhabit an achievement society. This society has its own distinct logic. It is no longer defined by "you should," nor is it solely defined by Deleuze's modulation. A new imperative has taken hold. The dominant verb is can. Yes, you can is its central mantra. This appears as a liberation from old constraints, from the negativity of prohibition. The achievement society is driven by positivity. It promises endless possibilities for self-realization. Individuals are encouraged to become entrepreneurs of themselves, to optimize their potential constantly, to strive for success and peak performance. This is not imposed by an external master. The subject of achievement is self-motivated. They believe they are acting freely. They are driven by an internal desire, the desire to achieve more, to be more. This society is characterized by its projects. Everyone is engaged in some form of project, improving oneself, one's career, one's body. The pressure is no longer to conform to a norm. It is to be outstanding, to be exceptional. This creates a different kind of subject. The achievement subject is always active, always striving, always performing. There is no clear limit to this performance. One can always do better, achieve more. This shift from should to can is profound. It transforms the nature of power itself. Power no longer operates primarily through negation. It does not simply restrict or forbid. Instead, it seduces and motivates. It channels desire towards productivity. The achievement subject is not oppressed. At least, not in the traditional sense. They are rather exhausted. This exhaustion is a key symptom. Section 5. The tyranny of can, internalized domination and self-optimization. The imperative you can sounds like freedom. It suggests the removal of external barriers. It implies that anything is possible if one only tries hard enough. This is the seductive promise of our time. However, this can quickly become a must, a relentless internal demand for more achievement, more optimization. The individual becomes their own taskmaster, their own harshest critic too. Self-optimization is the new religion. We are urged to constantly improve ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our careers, our relationships, our experiences. Every aspect of life becomes a project, something to be managed and enhanced. This creates enormous internal pressure. The self is no longer a given. It is a performance to be perfected. Failure is not attributed to the system. It is seen as a personal failing. This internalized domination is highly efficient. It requires no external enforcer. We police ourselves, we drive ourselves. The master and slave reside in one person. The achievement subject exploits itself, believing it is realizing itself. This is the cunning of the achievement society. It transforms coercion into apparent freedom. Discipline is replaced by initiative, prohibition by project and motivation. The pressure to perform is unending. There is no point of final satisfaction. Achievements are quickly forgotten. The focus shifts to the next goal. This creates a state of permanent restlessness, a constant striving without end. The achievement subject is always on the run, fleeing from a sense of inadequacy, chasing an ever-receding horizon of success. This is a deeply exhausting way to live. It is a new form of servitude. Section 6. Freedom's Paradox, Constructing Our Own Invisible Cage. The achievement society presents a stark paradox. It champions freedom and individual initiative, yet it produces a new form of unfreedom. This unfreedom is particularly insidious because it is largely self-imposed. We willingly enter this new cage believing we are pursuing our own desires, our own definitions of success and happiness. The cage has no visible bars. It is constructed from our own ambitions. The freedom offered is the freedom to achieve, the freedom to become an efficient performer. But this is a limited, conditional freedom. It is contingent upon constant productivity. Failure to perform leads to self-reproach, to feelings of guilt and inadequacy. The achievement subject is free to exhaust itself, free to burn out in the pursuit of success. This is not genuine autonomy. It is a sophisticated form of self-exploitation. The invisibility of this new cage is key. In disciplinary societies, power was visible. The factory walls, the prison bars, the rules were explicit, the master identifiable. One could resist this external power. In the achievement society, power is internalized. It masquerades as personal choice, as the pursuit of self-fulfillment. How does one resist oneself? How does one fight an enemy within? This paradox leads to a peculiar kind of suffering. The suffering is not caused by external oppression, but by an excess of positivity, an excess of possibility, of Khan. The achievement subject is not forbidden anything. They are simply overwhelmed by the demand to achieve. This invisible pressure is relentless. It permeates every aspect of life, work, leisure, relationships. All become sites of performance and optimization. True freedom requires more than just can. Section 7. The weight of achievement, burnout, exhaustion, and mental anguish. The relentless pursuit of achievement takes its toll. The human psyche is not designed for constant performance. The pressure to be always on is immense. This leads to a range of mental health issues. Burnout is a signature illness of our time. It is a state of profound emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged or excessive stress. The achievement subject burns out. They are consumed by their own drive, their own pursuit of endless success. Depression is another common consequence. It is not the melancholia of old, which often arose from a sense of lack or prohibition. This new depression stems from exhaustion, from the inability to can any longer. The achievement subject feels inadequate. They believe they have failed themselves. This leads to self-aggression and despair. The system itself is rarely questioned. The blame is internalized. Anxiety also flourishes in this climate. The constant need to perform, the fear of failure, of not measuring up, the uncertainty of a project-based existence all contribute to a pervasive sense of unease. Attention disorders are also on the rise. The hyper-attention required for multitasking, the constant switching between projects, this fragments our focus and depletes our mental energy. We become incapable of deep contemplation. This suffering is often individualized. It is seen as a personal problem, a sign of weakness or psychological flaw. But these issues are deeply societal. They are products of the achievement society itself. The system generates these pathologies. It demands more than we can sustainably give. The pressure to succeed is a heavy burden. It crushes many under its invisible weight. A society of tired, exhausted souls. Section 8. The illusion of empowerment, freedom lost in perpetual performance. The achievement society offers an illusion of empowerment. It tells individuals they are in control, that they are the authors of their own destiny. This narrative of self-mastery is seductive. It appeals to our desire for agency. However, this empowerment is conditional. It is tied to relentless performance, to constant self-optimization. True freedom is not merely the ability to achieve. It involves more than just positive affirmation. Personal responsibility is also reframed. In this paradigm, individuals are solely responsible for their successes and their failures. If you succeed, it is due to your effort. If you fail, it is your fault alone. This ignores systemic factors. It masks the coercive nature of the society, the pressure to conform to its demands. This intense focus on individual accountability can be a crushing burden. This constant performance erodes genuine freedom. When every moment must be productive, when leisure itself becomes a form of work, optimizing health, networking, self-improvement, where is the space for true rest, for contemplation, for non-instrumental activity, for simply being rather than always becoming? The achievement subject is always active, but this activity is often a form of passivity, a reaction to internalized demands. The sense of freedom becomes distorted. It is equated with the capacity to perform, the ability to choose between various projects. But the underlying imperative remains, the imperative to achieve, to optimize. This is not a choice freely made. It is a deep-seated societal expectation, one that shapes our desires and actions. We are free to run faster on the treadmill, but are we free to step off it? This is the pressing question. Section 9. Reclaiming autonomy, seeing beyond the achievement drive. Understanding these societal shifts is vital. It is the first step towards reclaiming true autonomy. We must recognize the nature of the new cage, the invisible bars of self-inflicted pressure, the tyranny of you can that becomes you must. This awareness allows for critical distance. It enables us to question the dominant narrative, the narrative of endless growth and self-optimization. This is not a call for passivity, but for a different kind of activity. Reclaiming agency means redefining success, moving beyond purely quantitative measures, beyond constant productivity and performance. It involves cultivating spaces for non-performance, for idleness, for contemplation, for true leisure. Activities that are valuable in themselves, not merely means to another end. It means fostering a capacity for not doing, to resist the constant urge to be active, to be productive in the narrow sense. This also involves a shift in responsibility, recognizing that not all problems are individual, that societal structures play a crucial role in shaping our well-being and our pressures. This can alleviate the burden of self-blame. It can open paths for collective action, for creating a society that is less exhausting, more humane, more genuinely supportive. A society that values being, not just achieving, that nurtures stillness as well as striving. True autonomy is not about limitless can. It is about conscious, reflective choice. It includes the freedom to say no to certain demands, to certain pressures, even if those pressures seem to originate from within. It is about setting our own limits, defining our own values, our own pace. This requires courage and introspection. To see the cage is to begin to dismantle it and to imagine a life beyond its confines, a life lived with greater awareness and peace.